alpine settings.
I'll my line and put it in the basket. That's it. Copy that. We've got the JNet form up here with the basket as well.
Everybody has to have a transceiver, a shovel, and a boat.
This is the Mountain Escapes Podcast, brought to you by the Backcountry Lodges of BC Association. Coming up on today's show, we talk with polar explorer, IPGA guide, adventurer, and passionate skier, Tessum Weber, one of the owner-operators of the Selkirk Mountains' remote and beautiful Battle Abbey Backcountry Lodge.
We've got an amazing country that is so diverse, and so we, really take a lot of pride in making sure that we can offer that to our guests to see what Canada is about in every aspect.
Now, here's the host of the show, the executive director of the BLBCA, and the owner of Call West Alpine Adventures, Brad Harrison.
Morning, Tessum. How are things going over? And I assume you're in Golden.
Over in Golden, and beautiful day, good weather, and we've got a good season underway at Battle Abbey.
Awesome. So, and your lodge is located just in the Selkirk Mountains, or southwest of Golden.
Correct. Yes, we're in the Melville group of the Battle Range, and so we're about an 18-minute flight by helicopter from Golden.
Are you getting centimeters and centimeters of snow just like we are here in Kamloops right now?
Yeah, we've had a pretty good season so far. It's we started out really strong in January, and then had a little bit of a dry spell at the end, but the taps seem to be turning back on, and actually our tenure, or the area where we ski, has held up really well. So we've had some really good snow, actually, all things considered, this year. So no complaints.
I've been up to Battle Abbey 3 or 4 times, summer and winter. It is absolutely an amazing place. Like, it's one of my favorite places to go. We've had Roger, you're the former owner, on an earlier podcast, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
And when did you take over from Roger?
We took over a year and change ago, and it took a little bit. The whole transfer process with the BC government takes a little bit of time, but we basically closed out last season in April, a couple trips, and then did a big renovation on the lodge over the course of the summer, and started operating a new program effectively at Battle Abbey this winter or this January. So we're about a month and a half into the new program, and it's been going really, really well.
So just a little bit of your background, Tessum. How did you end up in a position to take over a complicated lodge like this?
Yeah, actually, I count myself really fortunate. We come from a family of polar explorers and tourism operators for a couple generations now, and primarily based out of the Arctic. So for 35 years, we've been running complex trips in the Arctic, and safari lodges, and big private expeditions, and ski trips and kayak trips and hiking trips. So I grew up in a family where doing big trips was just a normal thing. Our dinner table conversations were conversations about going to the North Pole, or going and tracking the next polar bear to get a really good photo. So we're a little bit of a different family, so to speak, than your average cookie cutter family. But I grew up in a world where I've spent my whole life in tourism, and my brother as well, and we've always worked together. And we had been looking to we live in BC in the off season when we're not up in the Arctic, and have a great love of skiing. We grew up cross country ski racing at a high level, and I've always played in the mountains in British Columbia, and we're looking to effectively get into the lodge game, so to speak, in British Columbia. And it's a place we love. It's a place our families roam and enjoy, and we wanted to do things a little bit different, I think, than what existing lodges have done for many, many years, and take our experience from the Arctic and apply that to British Columbia.
So definitely a family affair. What amazing background. Is your brother active with the Battle Abbey operation?
Yeah, we basically work together on it, and he's got a very good skill set that we complement each other, and he's very knowledgeable with systems and generators and heating systems and solar and electrical and all those sorts of things, and so we make a pretty good team, the two of us.
Yeah, the millions of things you have to take care of running a backcountry lodge, as I kind of know myself. So you said that you're going to do things a little bit differently. What does that look like compared to what people might think a normal backcountry lodge in BC looks like?
Yeah. I don't and it's not to compare. I think we just really had a vision that we wanted to do in British Columbia. We love the mountains. We're out skiing every day, but we wanted to apply some of our skill set from the Arctic and some of our experience from the Arctic. So we, started implementing a smaller program and with a higher guide ratio, and doing things like, changing how our culinary menus are, focusing on local British Columbia, product in our culinary menus, our wine cellars, doing, exclusively working with small wineries in the Okanagan, things like how we built the lodge. The lodge has been there for many, many years, and it's an amazing place. We invested in it heavily to take it to another level, to have, to put in things like, great big, beautiful living rooms with windows overlooking the glaciers, amenities like an espresso bar in-house, doing things like having appetizers out on the deck, and just offering a little bit higher level of service for guests. And by doing so, we did things like, for example, our trips will only do 10 guests per 4 guides on staff. And that allows us to have small groups on the tenure, a couple folks at a time. We wanted to focus on an operation that could bring anyone to the mountains. Skiing, I've always believed, is for anyone. And, if you've got a love of linking turns and, being in the mountains, then there's no reason you can't be. And Battle Abbey is big. It's an amazing place. And I, fully understand why the great modern alpinists and operators in British Columbia came there in the 70s and, built what was, basically a comfortable hut back in the day, and operated, climbing in the summer and ski touring in the winter. But I wanted to, build a lodge and put in infrastructure that anyone could come in. So, folks who maybe have never really done a big backcountry touring trip, or even, folks who've done 10 or 15 backcountry touring trips. But by having that small group focus, it allows us to cater to each of those individual groups. So historically in the past, the groups have been a little bit bigger at Battle Abbey, but we took that decision to bring it down. So yeah, we're running 10 guests per trip, 4 guides on staff. And you can see on, on our website and on Facebook and Instagram, some of the amazing work that's been done at the lodge to make it beautiful and amazing. At the same time, honoring some of that historical charm that Battle Abbey has and everybody loves. What we ultimately fell in love with. I remember when we were talking with Roger and Laurie, about acquiring the lodge. I think we flew up there in June, and I was on my way to the Arctic, and I only had about an hour to walk around there. And I think within the first 5 minutes, that we landed, I turned to my wife and I said, "This is it. Like, this is just a spectacular place." And, from the lodge, you've got like 7 glaciers, there's tree skiing, there's alpine, there's, big cruisy alpine bowls to steep skiing. There's literally a little bit of every format of skiing for all types. And in the summer months, the hiking there, the trails there, I think the past owners were very modest about the trail network there, but it's a beautiful, beautiful trail network, amazing alpine lakes, and a lot of work has been done there to make it accessible in the summer. And we, immediately fell in love with the place and thought that, this is it. This is going to be what we wanted to do, both in winter and summer alike.
So upper scale food, lower guide to client ratio. Sounds like you're a lot different than, say, an Alpine Club of Canada hut, and you're probably pushing close to a heli ski type operation.
Yeah, I think we're definitely in sort of the realms of what the infrastructure that, remote heli ski operations will do, or luxury heli ski operations will do. And I wanted to bring that to ski touring. But yeah, that's, the target that we had and the vision that we had. And, I've always believed that even if you're, sitting at the North Pole, you can have amazing food and be really comfortable, or, whether it's in the mountains of British Columbia, you can be equally comfortable. And, making things like, beautiful wash facilities in the lodge, so that when you come in from ski touring, you've got a nice hot shower, a proper flush toilet, a nice warm sauna to relax in. Those are just the little things that I think folks enjoy, and I personally enjoy. So when we set out with that vision to repair the hut and to improve it, we put in a few of those things along the way.
The old adage, right? If you have a good day of skiing and a good meal, you remember the good meal. If you have a good day of skiing and a bad meal, you remember the bad meal.
Yeah, no, it's super important. It's very much an important part of the trip. And, we're really lucky to have a great chef that we work with, and she's worked with us for many years, and some great producers, families in northern BC. There's the Weeder family in northern BC that we buy our bison from, and they're like a 5th generation farming family. Some of the fruit producers in the Okanagan that will go and grab fruit fruit from. The winemakers, they're small scale families. So we really lucky to have, even some of the fishing families on the coast that we source fish from. They're all very small family operations that pride themselves in what they do and make amazing product. And we're really lucky to have all these suppliers that, ensure we've got great food and an amazing chef to make it all happen at the lodge.
And so do you find your guests are, quite attentive to that buying local and the whole environmental piece that's quite important right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not ultimately, a must in any operation, but I think it's just super appreciated. I think more and more these days, as the geopolitics of the world become complex and a little bit wild at times, we look to our, the amazing things we have locally. We're really lucky to have many international travelers that actually have been coming to Battle Abbey with the new program. And, when they come to Canada, they want to try Canadian. It's a really good example is, you come back from skiing and you've got a beautiful cheese board and a nice après waiting. It's cheeses from British Columbia and cheeses from Quebec. It's not, French cheeses or Swiss cheeses. Or, if you're going to sit at dinner and have a beautiful glass of wine, well, it's Okanagan wine. It's not French wine. It's, folks from places like the UK or Norway or Switzerland, they want to try Canadian. I think, I'm very proud to be a Canadian and a French Canadian. I think we've got an amazing country that is so diverse. And so we, really take a lot of pride in making sure that we can offer that to our guests to see what Canada is about in every aspect.
That whole thought seems to be definitely top of mind again for Canadians with our new friend south of the border kind of driving people to think that way, which is a good thing in the end, I think. As a owner of such a pretty complex facility, what does your daily work routine look like?
I'm a polar guide. I'm not a mountain guide, but I've been an operator for many, many years. So I'm really lucky. I'm surrounded by an amazing team. My mornings will start pretty early. We're up in the lodge, getting the lodge ready, turning on, getting stuff ready for breakfast, sitting down with the guides, seeing what the weather is for the day, the plan for the day. And, I'll be there with folks in the morning as well, just chatting about the day, what's planned and helping them get, the right gear for the day and make sure that they're properly set up to head out the door. And usually I'm out skiing with, most days with folks and then we'll come back in the afternoon and enjoy some of the amazing food at the lodge. On the days where I'm in the lodge, I'm typically working, helping support the systems. So things like, making sure that the sauna's piping hot when folks come in, making sure that our water systems are working well, making sure that our generator systems are working well, all those little things that, go into making a lodge nice and warm and comfortable and, accessible so that when folks come back, they're not coming back to a tent. They're coming back to a nice warm lodge that's they can relax in and enjoy the mountains.
And nothing ever goes wrong at a backcountry lodge.
No, of course not. Never.
British Columbia, Canada is a backcountry skier's paradise. With epic snowfall, vast alpine terrain, and cozy remote backcountry lodges. Your adventure begins here at backcountrylodgesofbc.com.
This is the Mountain Escapes brought to you by the BLBCA. We're chatting with Tessum Weber, owner of Battle Abbey Lodge. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Tess, we just want to talk about the summer operation. How does that differ from your winter operation? Logistically, operationally, and maybe what kind of guests? Same kind of guests?
Yeah, same kind of guests. They're folks who basically just have a really big love for the mountains. And, whether it's winter or summer, they want to play in them. They want to explore in them. They're folks who, when they're not skiing in the mountains in the winter, they're, playing in the mountains in the summer. And they want to get out and they want to hike and they want to mountaineer and they want to trail run. They want to fly fish and, they want to see animals in the mountains. So no, they're definitely, most of our folks are international, which is, I think, really great. They seem to be coming from all over the world to see the mountains of BC. And I get it. The world is becoming a really busy place, and BC is, in my opinion, one of the last truly wild mountain settings. And, it's accessible, it's easy to get to, but, you're alone in the mountains, and that's the beauty. And that's some of the beauty actually of Battle Abbey, that why it drew me was, it's highly accessible only. There's no roads. The valley has never been logged. We're surrounded by huge mountains. And when you're up there, you don't hear helicopters, you don't hear snowmobiles or ATVs, you just hear the mountains.
Mountains bring peace to the people.
This is Mountain Escapes.
So So wintertime, everybody's going to be, skiing or snowboarding. What kind of activities would they be partaking in the summer at your lodge?
For sure. So we have an amazing trail network at the lodge. So folks are definitely out, hiking and trail running. And with glaciers being, right next door to the lodge, there's a fair bit of mountaineering going on as well, walking over some of the glaciers and climbing some of the peaks. There is a little bit of wildlife in the area as well that's quite special. We had, funny enough, last summer, we had a couple families of mountain goats that were hanging around the lodge. In Valley Bottom, there's a beautiful grizzly bear corridor that, we actually stumbled upon last summer when we were hiking down in Valley Bottom, and it's like a highway. And it's obviously just, generations of bears walking up and down the valley. So we saw, grizzly bears quite regularly. There's the odd moose in the area as well, a little bit of bird life. So it's a mix of all those things. And nearby, there's a beautiful collection of alpine lakes that have some really great fly fishing. So, we started doing a little bit of heli fishing in the summer where, folks staying at Battle Abbey got picked up and brought over to, some of those little lakes for heli fishing. And that's been a really great add-on to what we're doing as well.
This is the BLBCA's Mountain Escapes podcast. Thank you for listening. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you hear us on. Now, back to the podcast.
You're in a really good position to try and influence visitors to the backcountry, to your backcountry in particular, but any backcountry. How do you feel you can best point them in the right direction on how to treat this awesome resource that's a little bit vulnerable at times?
I think it's incredibly vulnerable. As someone who has spent their entire life in some of the most wild and remote parts of the world, some of the regions of the circumpolar Arctic, and seen massive industrialization and changes affecting these regions. I think BC is in the mountain landscapes in British Columbia, probably some of the last truly wild landscapes and accessible wild landscapes. As an operator, we have a duty to show folks these landscapes, but operate in a sensitive way that we don't affect the landscape. So things like, how we handle our sewage, our garbage, our water, to make sure that we don't taint the environment, if you will. But at the same time, most importantly, show folks these landscapes. And a really good example is an inner city kid comes to the mountains in British Columbia and, has never spent time in these places, maybe has seen them on television or has read about them, but has never seen them, in person. I think there's a huge effect that happens there. And that's really for any visitor. And, and I've seen that over and over over the course of the years where, you have folks who have really busy lives. They typically live in, very large urban centers, and they'll come out to these mountains, and they come out because they want to see what these wild landscapes are. And they realize that we have to protect these places. We have to keep these places pristine. And I think British Columbia and the Backcountry Lodge Association of British Columbia has a really important role in that, is promoting those places and making sure that they stay pristine for many years to come. So I feel, as we have a huge duty as an operator, but also as an education piece for our guests to show them this place. And, I'm really excited for the coming years. We're obviously, only about a year and change into operating Battle Abbey, but, for the coming years, I'm super excited to, get out with folks and show them these places.
And you mentioned the BLBCA, which you're a member of. What would you like to see our association focus on? Any particular things?
More of a presence at the international stage. Operators were so busy, running our lodges and, focusing on the power systems, the water systems, and, making sure that everything is great for our guests that come in. But I think to focus on the international stage, and we have a really big opportunity on the international stage because those other mountain places in the world are so busy and just not as wild as they used to be. We have an opportunity to showcase British Columbia at the international stage. And I think the BLBCA is perfectly positioned to do that.
Hey, Tessum, before we sign off for the day, I've heard a little birdie told me that you did quite an amazing trip to the Arctic Pole. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I am the youngest person to reach the North Pole from land. A number of years ago, my dad, who was the first person to reach ski to the North Pole and back unsupported, was guiding an expedition to the North Pole, and I'd finished cross-country ski racing and was looking for a challenge. And he said, "Hey, do you want to, come help me guide this expedition to the North Pole? We're going to leave the northern tip of land in Canada, a place called Ellesmere Island, from the very, very tip of it, and ski all the way to the North Pole." I said, "Sure, why not?" And so we trained trained for about 2 years. On March 3rd, we in polar darkness, there was a team of 4 of us, and we skied from Canada to the North Pole over the Arctic Ocean. It was a trip that took us 42 days, 18 hours, 52 minutes. And in the process, set the speed record to the North Pole, and was able to do it with my dad, which is really exceptional. It's a really hard trip. It's, not inherently dangerous like some of the big mountaineering stuff in the Himalayas and stuff, but yeah, just in terms of difficulty, it's, it's hard. You leave at minus 60 or minus 55 when you leave northern Canada, and you're walking over the Arctic Ocean. You have days where you might make a couple miles because the ice is pushing you backwards, and you're navigating floating ice and pack ice, and you're swimming across leads at minus 45 Celsius. So yeah, it was a hard trip, but an amazing challenge, and I was really lucky to fortunate to be able to take part in it.
Have you ever recorded this trip, or is there a write-up on it anywhere that people could read?
There's a couple pieces in the news floating around on the internet, but I mean, we took some images and did it, and didn't make a video or anything out of it. It was just a challenge that we wanted to do, and we were guiding 2 folks. One guy was a gentleman from South Africa who'd done a bunch of sailing and sailed around the world, and then another guy was from Geneva, and he'd done a bunch of big mountaineering like Everest and K2 and a few other things. Our job was to guide these 2 folks all the way to the North Pole. So we just did it, took a few photos, and went home. And there's a little bit of press at the end. I think Explorer's Web, actually. So if you go on Explorer's Web, which is kind of like the resource for polar expeditions, there's a write-up there.
I think it's absolutely amazing. You must have had some days where it's just like, is this trip ever going to end, or this day ever going to end? Did you have food drops?
We had one parachute drop after 23 days by plane. Yeah, unfortunately, one of the parachutes didn't open and it broke, and a bunch of stuff got damaged. But that was, par for the course on a big expedition. You just figure it out. I'm
going to have to buy you a beer one day and sit down and get the long version of this story. Very good. That's awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Tessum. If listeners are interested, how would they best reach you? So I always recommend folks check out our website. It's weberpowder.com, and you'll see, everything we do. I'm always stoked to answer any questions about BC and the amazing skiing and exploring that we have. This has been the BLBCA's Mountain Escapes. We've been fortunate enough to visit with Tessum Weber, owner of Battle Abbey Lodge. Thanks for listening in, and take good care.
Mountain Escapes, brought to you by the BLBCA.